Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the EDM Grid Podcast. My name is Henry, also known as Henkray. I'm joined by Oswald, aka Oswald, who has still bleached his hair. How's it
Oswald,
going?
aka Oswald,
Yeah,
that's
we've
me.
done this way
thank
too
you,
many
dude.
times. The creativity.
and every time is a lot cringier than the last, so yeah.
Oh, 100%. Speaking of
Yeah.
creativity, we have got the excellent artist. They have been on Rushdown, they've been on Disciple, they've been on Monstercat. You've got both of the flags and the t-shirt being repped over here.
Yeah, fucking everywhere, dude.
Show it off. It's Convexity. How are you doing?
Hey everyone. I'm fine.
Yo. This intros never get better.
Oh,
dude.
they never get better. It's always
Just
like
chilling.
this every single time. It's just pure vibes and nothing else.
I love it. Yeah.
Convexity, tell the audience a bit about yourself. Because you've worked on a lot of projects, but maybe some kind of things that they don't know about you, or maybe they just don't know about you full stop, in which case, what are they doing? But tell the audience a bit about yourself.
I'm some person who sits in here and presses buttons, and some people on the internet like it.
Amen.
Fire. Yeah, that's
but,
fire, dude.
Yeah. In general, I'm some, mid-20s programmer who got lucky with music. I've been doing music for a really long time. I've been basically ever since I was 7 years old, and I love telling this story because there was an old store called Circuit City in America. It was just like an electronics store, kind of like Best Buy. Circuit City's gone these days, but I always loved going there and looking at stuff. And I saw Magic's Music Maker there. It was Magic's Music Maker 2005 Deluxe Edition, and it was on clearance. And so I was there with my dad at the time, and I was like, "Dad, I want this," and he was like, "All right, you can have it." And so that's how I started out. And so it was like arranging loops and stuff. Nothing, too crazy. It was just like putting all the stuff that was already there in the program, just kind of arranging it in whatever way. But I was doing that for a while, and then eventually, got into dubstep actually around 2011, and it was because of Noise Storm. And Noise Storm had it was very early era Noise Storm. I was basically, I had just gotten into Minecraft and stuff at the time too, and so I was watching Machinima videos back whenever Machinima was alive as well. And there was some kind of outro that they did where they used a Noise Storm song. I was like, wait, that song is a banger. And so I had no idea what to even call it. I had no idea what was going on with it. So I looked up that song and saw it was dubstep. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I looked at the rest of Noise Storm's discography at the time. I was like, this is incredible stuff. And then, of course, since Monstercat was just starting out at the time as well, it was kind of around 003, 004 album era. It's late 2011. Because Noise Storm was part of the beginning, I just, immediately discovered Monstercat after that. And then I was just hooked on Monstercat all throughout high school. Eventually, just soon after, started producing dubstep, and basically I was into using trackers. So the software where the little bar scrolls down and it's kind of like a list of notes that go up instead of a piano roll. I was really into that for some reason when I was in middle school, and so I was still using that even when I started to produce dubstep. I did that for a few years before I switched to an actual DAW. But yeah, I've been making dubstep for 13 years.
Whoa, damn.
Fair enough.
You've got a lot of. It's crazy how you just resumed 13 years in 2 minutes. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm so sad I missed that era of I'm so sad I missed that era of Monstercat, because it's like the
Yeah,
I
dude,
listen
what
back
were
to
you
the.
doing in kindergarten?
I was
Come
busy.
on.
I don't know. I was like learning how to count my ABCs and like, but like,
Yeah, bro. What?
wait. So when did you start like actually getting sort of serious about music? Because obviously, like during back in the day, like you were still quite young and sort of taking it one step at a time. But like, when was the
Yeah.
time that you sort of started to actually be like, whoa, I could do something with this?
There were a couple instances, because the first instance I would say was around like 2016 when I started my own label. It's called Expanse Records, and there's probably some folks that may watch you that may get flashbanged hearing Expanse Records again after such a long time, because there was a lot of people, you know, even in today's scene who was around, you know, they were around in the Expanse era as well. It was a different time for sure. It was a definitely an interesting learning experience, but I feel like that, you know, Expanse was really important in my general like artistic growth because it connected a lot of people together and it connected me to a lot of people. Um, and so I felt like at the time that it was something that could kind of keep growing, and we did get some really cool achievements and help a lot of people. Um, you know, there was the folks like that were the most successful Expanse alumni. I think the most successful is probably Gyrofield, who, you know, she's killing it in the D&B scene now. We had Ewan Ellis, who's like really popular in like synthwave, has had some extremely popular uploads on Electronic Gems. Um, we had Cloud Cage, um, and Feathervane, and they're both Monstercat Silk artists.
Silk, yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like, you know, and besides me, of course, but you know, the other folks as well that I met along the way. So that was kind of like the first era where I felt like, oh, something could, you know, come out of this. But you know, eventually it did kind of die off, and you know, Expanse ceased in 2019. I think the second kind of like big peak for me was 2018. I released a song with a buddy at the time. I mean, he's still kind of a friend. Who his alias is Exhaust, and we released a song called Cosmic Kittens.
Yes.
And
Nice.
We're getting to it.
yeah,
The
Cosmic
kittens
Kittens kind of blew up for some reason. It got picked up by Glitch Hop community. It got picked up by Captain Sparkles himself, the guy.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, quite literally.
One and only.
He ran a promotion channel at the time called Marin Music, and because that's just his last name, so it's just Marin Music. But yeah, he would promote quite a bit of stuff, and some of the stuff they promote, he put in like outros on Captain Sparkle's videos. So Cosmic Kittens is in the outro for at least 2 or 3 Captain Sparkle's uploads. So that was pretty cool. And then
that must be crazy.
That must be
Yeah.
like sick, especially because like you started out playing Minecraft. All of a sudden to have Captain
Yeah.
Sparkles like use your music in one of the outros.
Yeah,
Must have been so surreal. Oh my god.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
it's kind of like the
wanna
first
ask-
moment, you know.
I want to ask this question just because everyone said it. Do you like that song now?
Yeah, it's I mean, it is kind of aged, you know.
Interesting.
There's definitely,
It's aged.
you know, yeah. I mean, I kind of had like a cutoff point for my current discography versus like my really old stuff, and I felt like that 2018 was like the point where I started to take things seriously. Just to answer your question before, because I have 2 distinct discographies that I kind of separated. So the current discography, like I said, started at 2018, kind of around Cosmic Kittens onward. Um, and then the pre-Cosmic Kittens stuff was under a different name. And so, yeah, basically, like once Cosmic Kittens blew up and started, like, you know, getting picked up, Captain Sparkles as well as the 8-Bit Drummer actually covered it on a stream one time. It's like other things. It got uploaded other places. Yeah, it was pretty. You know, it got pretty noticed, I guess, just in general. Like I mean, it didn't go super duper big, like, you know, these days where you could like get a song like on trending on TikTok or something and have a lot of
Right.
like
Yeah.
a certain trend around a single song. Like that's like an easy way to get millions of plays. Um, Obviously didn't have that at the time. So, you know, for my perspective, it was doing pretty well because it got to like 100,000 plays on Spotify even at that time, which was, you know, I was really surprised by that. I was like, okay, I feel like I could do something here, and so I got a bit more
Nice.
serious, started to, you know, rebrand myself a bit, and started this current trajectory. Um, there was like the first EP that I released, kind of like in this current run, was Me and My Shadow EP, which was also still in the Expanse era, and that was kind of whenever I started to establish like the whole like analog kind of vapor wavy kind of nostalgic aesthetic for my brand, um, and from there I did kind of like detour a little bit out of that for a while, but once I started getting into like Rushdown and everything, I kind of went back into it, and then Chime uh, kind of encouraged me to continue in that particular vein, because he felt it was really unique in the general scene to do that. So I kind of had it on lock, you know, even back in 2019, and so even while I was still kind of flailing around, even like in 2020, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what kind of style I wanted to make, like how I would continue to grow. You know, once I got to Rushdown, that answered that question. Um, so yeah, I would say took started taking music like really seriously 2018, 2019, and then once I got to Rushdown in 2021, that was like the point where everything started to, you know, grow exponentially from there. But
Yeah. Whoa.
yeah,
Very. I wanna go back to Expanse because, like, hearing how you started a label in 2016. Obviously, you got so
yeah,
many labels now about like that are on the come up. We spoke to Desks like a couple episodes ago about Nealuminum.
yeah.
What was
She's a
it
very good
like
friend.
starting a label in 2016 where things were a lot less established and a lot less like
Yeah.
clear on how to do things?
Oh yeah, it was a whole different era. Like Discord was only like a year old. Like we were still kind of moving
Whoa.
on from like Skype groups to Discord at the time. And so I still remember that there were like a couple Skype groups that were still like hanging on at the time, but most of them were starting to move to Discord. And so Discord was like a really new thing at the time, and we felt like that we could really take advantage of it by having these little communities. And so I was like, um I felt like, so this is what this period of history I call like the first label wave, or the first underground label wave, because there were actually, besides Expanse, there were actually quite a lot of other labels that kind of popped up around this time, kind of a lot of small labels, kind of similar to today where there's a lot of small labels. It was very similar to that back then, but most of those labels don't exist anymore now. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was pretty similar where a lot of people wanted to try making their own labels, including me. And but I was going into it like completely blind, and you know, but most people were as well. Like a lot of people were inspired by like Monstercat, like I was, to kind of like
Mhm.
try and do it their own way, because they felt like, you know, I really felt like at the time there was a way bigger divide between like the big players like Monstercat and Disciple up here versus the underground. These days, I feel like that they're, well, I I, I don't know about like the present day, because I feel like it's getting kind of separated again with, I don't know what big labels are really up to these days, and with mid-sized labels kind of either shutting down or becoming more inactive. Like it's starting to become like more of a divide again between biggest and smallest. So that divide was very prominent back in like 2016 era. So we just felt like, let's just start our own projects, because it just feels impossible to get to the top. Um, so I figured we just help, you know, the people around us kind of create communities, create labels and places to release on. And that was just kind of how it worked out. There was a lot of different ones that popped up, and each one kind of did their own little thing, had their own little branding or whatever. But it was so different because I mean that was also in 2016. It was kind of more of like the edgy era of the internet. So like there were actually
Yeah, don't.
cases. There were cases where like labels would raid other labels' Discord servers. This would
Oh
happen.
my god.
What?
Yeah,
Wait,
literally.
there were
Like,
rivalries?
there were rivalries. There were
Something?
rival labels at that day. Like labels had beef with each other. It was crazy. And so
Bro.
like there were cases where like a label would like go and raid other servers.
What?
And yeah, it was insane. I mean, definitely a completely different time to now. Like
Oh,
so
definitely.
much
Like, man.
so much in terms of like just intolerance and immaturity and like just
Mm.
hot-headedness and like it was pretty prominent back then.
Yeah, I
It was
guess
just a
back
lot
then
of general.
internet was pretty stupid anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a whole different time. People were just like, oh, I'm on the internet, I can do whatever I want kind of deal. And so it
Right.
definitely was really toxic in terms of like the interpersonal relationships and the labels, as well as the relationships with between the labels. There was I know that Expanse had like one big rival, like they hated our guts, and we tried multiple times to like make amends. There was like one time where we tried to make like a some sort of like collaborative community where like both of our staff were kind of in the same servers. Like, oh, we're friends now. See, we promote each other. We're cool, and it's just kind of like a very tense handshake. See, we're friends.
Right?
Nothing wrong here.
Like a Cold War or some sort.
Let me
Yeah,
guess.
it
Didn't
it
work.
really felt like a Cold War. Yeah,
Didn't
it didn't
work.
work. That fell apart pretty quickly.
Damn.
And it's funny because the rival label also ended up falling apart. It was like some strange drama that
Yeah.
happened. I don't even remember at this point. But yeah, they're gone. They're long gone.
Oh
but
my
yeah,
god.
so that was pretty much how it was back in the day. Like there were rivals. There was shit talking. There was like back talk, like gossip and rumors and all abound. And it was like a Wild West. Absolutely
That sounds so
different.
bizarre, dude. Like,
Surely,
whoa.
surely
Yeah.
some of that is. I'm guessing, like, not now, but like looking back, surely that's somewhat fun. Just like looking back and seeing like everything, all the stupid stuff that was happening
Right?
back then.
I mean,
I'm thinking the same, like.
Yeah, thinking back on it, like almost 10 years later, good God.
Oh my
Thinking back on
god!
it,
Jeez.
I'm so
yeah,
old.
thinking back on it, it was nowadays it's fun to think about, but like back then it was pretty stressful, and it was just like felt like life or death. Being younger and being like, oh,
How old were
this is
you?
like this project means a lot to me. I actually started Expanse when I was 18. It was like a
That's
freshman
still
year.
young to start a label, though, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
guess I
it
can't talk. I can't really talk about being.
Yeah, you're.
starting something.
I checked and I was like, oh,
Right,
you're like
you're started all
fetus.
this project.
Yeah, I can't really
Yeah.
say anything.
Yeah.
But still, 18 and like having to deal with all of that like chaos is kind of crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, I have no idea
Mhm.
how I was able to manage college and doing that at the same time. It took. I was so stupid. I made such stupid decisions back then. Like literally, there was a point in time where we were accepting so many tracks that it felt so overwhelming that we were like, you know what? Let's release one track per day.
Jesus Christ.
Whoa.
What?
So
What?
What?
we released 5 songs a week. I don't know how we
that's
did that.
Good advertising. Oh my
I don't know how
Especially
we
for a
did that.
smaller
We got-
label as well. Like you don't have as many people. Like
Yeah, we got
back
burned out
then,
pretty quick
I'm
after
sure
that one.
like releasing music was actually kind of harder, I guess.
exactly. You don't have
Yeah.
like things like
Distribution
websites
services.
to like
I don't know.
exactly.
Hmm. Yeah, it was actually we did use symphonic distribution at the time. Symphonic's actually pretty old. I had personally been using it since 2015. I had been kind of grandfathered into their partner program, and so I got like all their special features or whatever, because they ended up way later introducing like a artist plan where it was like kind of similar to DistroKid, where it's like $20 a year and you get access to a certain set of features. But I'm still kind of in like the partner program for Symphonic, and I was using that at the time with Expanse as well. So I have like a couple different Symphonic accounts. There's one that's like just for Expanse. So we did, have that at least. I mean, there wasn't really a lot in terms of like options for that, and there were definitely different options at the time for distribution. Like, I don't even know. There was like one called Music Kickup, or something like that. It was similar to that. I remember using that for like 2 singles of like self-release singles. I don't even know if that's up anymore. There's like
I love how every
um,
single thing that we've talked about is just, oh yeah, this happened in 2016. It's not around anymore, but it was
yeah,
cool when
it's
it
all it's
lasted.
gone. It's gone. It
It's
has
history,
no
yeah.
yeah, it has no bearing on today's society at all. But
Right.
back in my day, shaking my cane
Damn,
around.
man. And you were calling
Yeah,
me old, Henry. Come on.
Yeah, I was.
Just kidding.
nah, bro, I'm a fossil. I'm turning 27 in a few months.
Oh man.
Wait,
Um,
we're
How you feeling,
separated by
Ankh?
10 years. Oh my god.
yeah, I hate thinking about that. There's
Yeah,
so
don't
many
worry about
people.
it, Ankh. It's okay.
Yeah,
Unk is
yeah.
You're still
crazy.
in your golden age.
Unk is crazy.
No, I'm kidding, but like, it's still cool to think about like the whole trajectory you've been having these last years. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy to hear
And
about. I
speaking of
love
these
it.
last years, great segue, Oswald. I'm proud of you. No, I
Yeah,
wanna
you're
talk
welcome.
about, 'cause, you had Cosmic Kittens, right? That was your kind of big release, and then
Yeah.
was your next kind of thing not Monstercat? It was Rushdown, getting accepted into Rushdown, right?
Yeah,
I think
Rushdown
okay,
came
I've got it
like
right.
yeah, Rushdown came 3 years later. I was like, I felt that I had like peaked at Cosmic Kittens, and so I was definitely kind of going through it like mentally, kind of around that 2019, 2020, because I just felt like that I was not going to go anywhere. I felt like, okay, Cosmic Kittens was like the peak, and that's it. And so
Mm.
I was just like, I was feeling pretty bad about my music. I was like feeling really insecure about it. I was kind of trying all sorts of different things. Um, tried like I released like a whole EP at the time that was like all house music. It was kind of like a slight departure, and then like there was a whole my technically debut album is like kind of a bunch of different things, but that debut album, which also doesn't really fit my current brand, was actually my senior capstone project for my audio engineering degree, and so there was like a reason why that album exists, and it was for that. But like it's still an album that means a bit to me just because it's like kind of sums up my whole college journey. Um, so it's kind of like a certain phase in my life that I have moved on from. Complications era, because Complications was the name of that album. But from there, I started to get into more of like, because this was also whenever I started like following Rushdown a little bit more, like in 2020. I had known about Rushdown before. I actually had competed, sort of competed. There was like a remix competition for Whirlwind. That was 2018 as well, I think. So I actually participated in that, and obviously did not win. I like
Damn.
the remix that I made was pretty bad. It was like some sort of it was more of a flip than a remix. Like I just kind of took like the drop and kind of chopped it up and like made like glitch hop out of it. But it wasn't even that good either. So
Oh.
Just
obviously it
sample the
didn't
song
really
or something.
get in. Yeah, so Chime and I had sort of crossed paths that one time in 2018. Because obviously, they heard it. And I had actually asked them about it like years later. I was like, "Do you remember me submitting to the Whirlwind competition?" He was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." But it was pretty funny.
Pretending.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so through that era of like 2019, 2020, I was like kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall. But like I also started getting more into Rushdown, kind of like seeing color base kind of starting to shape a little bit more and into like what we know it is today. it was kind of more of like a proto kind of color base at the time of like 2020. It was still kind of, gaining its particular sounds. So I started kind of learning, how to do that. And I was also around the time that Halcyon started. And Halcyon was like, oh, wow, this is like a really fresh sound that I really like. So Halcyon has kind of become like a really big inspiration to me as well. Um, and so I was like kind of studying that sound. I was hearing it. And I was like, okay, how do I do this? Um, so I figured out a lot of it. I think that like the big thing that really pushed me was Melda's M Morph plugin. That was like the big thing. I was like, okay, this is a really interesting sound. So I used Morph to kind of do like the color base thing of like mixing together like saw wave and bass together to make color base. And so it was really interesting because like I feel like a lot of people at the time were using like vocoders and resonators because pitch map
Yeah.
hadn't been discovered yet. Pitch map was actually an old plugin, but it was only discovered like its purposes were only discovered like much later. But so that wasn't a thing yet. It was just like the vocoder and resonator kind of era. So I kind of went a different way and used Morph. I don't think a lot of people were really going that direction at the time, and so I had to really.
Now
I
they're
was kind
just
of
using
carving
Chroma, and
out
that's
like
it.
yeah, I was kind of carving out like a particular sound, like a distinct sound for me, particularly like in terms of color base. And so I submitted. There were actually a few other demos I submitted. There were actually. It took me 3 demos to get on Rushdown. The first one that I submitted was Centuries.
Right?
Centuries ended up on Disciple 4 years later, but I had remade it
Damn.
like from
Oh.
scratch. Yeah,
Right.
so
Oh, so you like
it
remastered it
sounded
or something?
yeah, I basically just remade the whole track from scratch. Like all the
Oh.
sound design from scratch, rewrote the song entirely. But the old version of Centuries, which sounds way more aged, that was my first demo for Rushdown, and that got denied. It got kind of like an almost there kind of thing. Like keep submitting, you're almost got it. My next submission was Tilt Mode, which came out on Circus 3 years later.
Okay, that's you're just
So
okay.
Tilt Mode was also something that I remade completely from scratch after that. And so that ended up getting on Circus later. So Tilt Mode got denied as well. The third demo was Entanglement, and Entanglement got on. That was what got me on Rushdown was Entanglement through Label Radar.
Nice.
And so appeared on New Colors Volume 4. I actually debuted slightly earlier because Modus, who I actually knew Modus previously, because he was kind of around in the Expanse era, kind of loosely followed Expanse, and so we kind of cross paths every now and then. And so he was also in Novatone, which I haven't even talked about Novatone yet.
Yes, we gotta get onto that
Um,
at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah,
was
time.
around in Novatone as well, kind of like in that kind of 2018, 2019 kind of time. And so Modus and I had crossed paths a few times. And so Modus obviously was already on Rushdown, had already released like a whole album. So we had crossed paths again once I actually got on Rushdown and started being able to talk to folks. And so Modus was planning a remix compilation for his album, and so I was like, I want to try something for that, and so I made something, and so that was ended up becoming my actual debut, was my remix of No Limits. So that was the first Rushdown release that I had, but Entanglement, which was the next one, was my actual like demo, like the first thing that I actually got signed with Rushdown. But yeah, that just kind of all started happening like all of a sudden because that got accepted. Entanglement got accepted in like the end of 2020, um, and so that didn't come out until like um, a few months into 2021. It's like the beginning of 2021 was kind of like when things started happening. But yeah, I don't even know like where else to go from that, because from
Well,
there it's
you're
just
you've
kind of
got
one thing
a
after the
lot
next.
of, because you're now the. How did you become the A&R for Rushdown? Because that happened at some
You
point.
know?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
so
I see you also
how
do a
that
lot of
happened is,
community management as well, like
yeah,
just the community
um,
stuff. How did that
that
happen?
that gets into Novatone as well. But in
Hmm.
terms of Rushdown A&R, that was like kind of later on. That was I ended up becoming A&R after Colourbass Volume 3. Um, so it was just a time where we were like, Sharks was doing most of the A&R at the time, kind of up
Hmm.
to that point. But Sharks had started to get a bit more busy, started to like not have as much time, and so I just kind of stepped in. I was like, I wouldn't mind helping out. And Chime and I had started to develop a pretty good working relationship, because he just for some reason was just like really believed in me, and it was so nice.
Damn.
Like he kind of just became kind of like a mentor figure for me, like kind of pushing me in a certain
Whoa.
direction. Like, you should totally try and do more of this stuff. You should do more of the jazz stuff. You should do more of the analog kind of nostalgic type stuff. You should do more of the silly snares, which was like a one-off thing that I thought was funny, and then it ended up becoming a meme. Uh, um,
I've heard
so
so many good stories about Chime. Like every single like color based artist I've interviewed said that like they are really sort of influential in terms of like getting color based artists to sort of push
absolutely.
Right?
themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say like sounds like Chime is
I
like
need to get him on the
a,
podcast at some point.
yeah,
That would be
imagine.
cool.
Definitely need to. Yeah.
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Chime is like definitely a mentor figure for me. It's so funny because,
Hmm.
like, obviously, if you're gonna ask a lot of Rushdown people how they feel about Chime, they're all gonna be like, "Oh, I love him. Oh, he's the best." And so, like, it sounds cultish in a way, but genuinely,
All hail!
genuinely, like,
We bow
all hail
down.
the Harvey.
Bow down to Chime.
Yeah, we pray to
Just
Chime
pointing
every
him.
morning.
Yeah.
No, but like, he's just a really good friend, and he
Hmm.
basically just, he pushed me in the right direction. He basically saved my music career. Like, I owe it to him, and that it's
Whoa.
just as simple as that. I mean, it's not really anything too deep or whatever. It's just like he just helped me out. He gave me a platform. So that's something that I really admire him for, is just like just thinking about the underground and like wanting to push them forward and give them a platform and be able to have them connect to the bigger things. And that's why I kind of said that Rushdown is like was kind of like the perfect mid-size label, because what I envision a
Hmm.
mid-size label to be is the underground is able to bridge, it kind of bridges the gap between like the big players, Monstercat, Disciple, like over here, and then the underground over here. That mid-size label kind of like provides the gap here, so that if you're underground and you like really prove yourself and get here, and you start to meet a bunch of people who had worked with bigger people, you can form those connections and be able to work with bigger people from there. So that was kind of the Rushdown machine in a way. Was like we
Hmm.
started to meet cool people who could help us out, and we'd make friends with each other, and they're like, "Oh, dude, this demo sounds really cool. Let me help you. Let me like hit up so and so over at this place, and we'll see if we can. I'll vouch for you," kind of thing. Just taking advantage of connections and networking. Um, so without Rushdown, I feel like that it's starting to have that divide again, because it's been kind of difficult for me
Hmm.
these days to kind of maintain my relationships with the big labels. I mean, I still talk to them every now and then and things like that, but it is a little bit more difficult. But I got a bit. I digress. So for A&R, for Rushdown, yeah, I basically just stepped up and I was like, I would like to help. And at the time, there
Interesting.
were like at least 200 demos that were sitting in the
Jeez.
box, that were like just sitting
Whoa.
there because like they were all so locked in on like Colourbass Volume 3 planning, and we are like trying to get the bigger folks like AU5 come on, and Siren and Soul and Nazco, and it's really trying to get it to be like the best Colourbass compilation it could possibly be. And so because of that, the demos were languishing and they were just kind of sitting there rotting. And so somebody had to go get through them, and I did that. I went
long did it
through
take?
200 or so demos. It took about a few days. I like really locked in on it. Yeah, I mean, like
Right.
it a few days definitely doesn't seem like a long time, but I was just like really locked in on it. I just sat down. I was like, all right, here we go, one after the next.
All
right.
Just better on everything. Right.
Yeah.
Any percent
So yeah,
Colourbass
yeah. In zero inbox or whatever. I don't remember the whole movement of like getting the inbox to
speedrun.com,
zero.
I never got into it. I don't care.
Yeah. So in terms of community management, what I did after Expanse died. So Novatone is
Let's get on to
a
this.
place.
I want to talk about this.
Novatone is a place that exists and still does, and is very cool. It's one of the only things that I've been involved with that is actually still running.
Damn.
So yeah, Novatone has been around since 2016. It is actually older than Expanse, if you can believe it, but it's older by a few months. Expanse started like October-ish 2016, and Novatone started in like February 2016. So yeah, it's been a long time. Novatone's been around for almost 10 years. It's over 9 years now. So basically, how this happened. So Expanse was kind of like adjacent to Novatone. Novatone was known as Elevate at the time, and so it was like a whole different name, different brand. So Novatone these days does like a compilation series that you can submit to. There's like specific like genre focused compilations every so often. That are like it's kind of like a charity label kind of thing, kind of similar to Form. And so it's kind of similar challenges like that. So Novatone is pretty similar in that regard. What it used to be back in Elevate was like a big yearly competition. And so it was kind of like a King of the Hill type competition, or I guess kind of like a battle royale type competition where like you started out with a bunch of players. Yeah, like
Fortnite
like,
producer.
producer.
I'm trying to imagine Fortnite. It. Like it sounds so cool.
Yeah, producer Fortnite. So like it started out kind of like there were different rounds, and so people would get eliminated at each round until there was one winner at the end. And so there were like the stakes were high. Like we were talking like cash prize, talking like
damn.
I don't know. There were more than cash prizes. There was other stuff.
I'm guessing like free plugins or something, or samples.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember exactly what partners there were at the time or anything. That's definitely more of a Melanie Novatone type of question. I think that she could get like really deep into the true Novatone lore. I know quite a bit of it, just from hearing about it and being adjacent to it, and then like getting involved in it later. But she was there since day one, and is still the owner now. So
right.
if you want recommendations for people to interview, Melanie Novatone's there too.
Right. Great, take note.
I gotta put this down. Hold on.
Yeah. Right. So back in the Elevate days was actually kind of around whenever I started, but I had been kind of loosely involved with Elevate starting in like 2017. They also did festivals. Now, another service that doesn't exist anymore is plug.dj.
Not another one.
So plug.dj was really cool, and there's nothing really like it anymore. It's basically you log on to this site, and it's basically like a virtual festival. And so somebody can like step up to the virtual decks and play either like a SoundCloud or play YouTube, like on like a big screen. And then there's like all the participants would show up as little avatars down here. So It was honestly really fun, and there's nothing really like
Hmm.
that anymore. Because like it was like a big era of like URL festivals. That was like a big thing
Hmm.
like back in that era. A lot of people were doing those, and URL festivals kind of kept being a thing like even through like the early 2020s. I don't really see them much like at all anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But unless I'm not looking in the right place, but I don't really hear
I
about them.
mean, yeah, I was gonna say like maybe the only thing that I could imagine of something like that is VR chat raves,
Yeah, there's a
Yes,
couple
which
there.
I guess kind of
VR chat definitely is like a substitute for that, but you also have to like build a lot of that either from scratch or you need to get like a world to do it, and you got to set up stuff.
yeah,
But
it's a bit more complicated than just hopping on
mhm.
the stage and putting whatever you want.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Like VR chat as well as
mhm.
like Minecraft festivals were definitely big. The Minecraft festivals were definitely
Oh,
still
those
big even
were
at
so
the time.
I
cool.
still remember
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Minecraft
Yeah,
Disciple Festival that
Yes,
happened
the
all the
block
time.
parties. Those went hard.
Yes.
Yeah. Um.
those were so cool.
So yeah. So I first got started with Elevate in 2017. I was invited. I think we had like an Expanse showcase that we were invited to. So the different labels at the time kind of had like their own showcases for one of the
Mm.
days, and so Expanse got its own showcase, and so I got my own slot, of course, in there.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that was kind of like my first interaction with Elevate, but I did not get involved in the community until much later. I got involved like at the very beginning of 2019. The reason was because like I was talking about earlier about rivalries and about like bad blood and stuff at the time, I thought that Novatone
Right.
hated me. Or Elevate
Damn.
at the time, I thought that Elevate hated my guts and were like shit talking Expanse and like
Damn
Ooh.
the trauma, dude. Oh my god.
yeah,
You got like a
people were like just
shockwave
kind
when
of
you see the email that like I want to collaborate with you, and it's like, it's like seeing like
What?
the people that you thought hated you all of a sudden just like invited you to do a collaboration event. All of a sudden,
yeah.
the sub drop,
Um
like,
Yeah, I mean, there was also like, besides 2017, like that kind of period of time after 2017 up to 2019, I also, thought that they hated me because like I did make some stupid decisions throughout that time.
Hmm.
Pretty bad management. And so Expanse was definitely kind of like starting to fall off at that time. So there was a lot of, talk going around and, I didn't have a good reputation at the time. And yeah, Elevate was like really stoking that at times. Like they
Hmm.
were like addicted to drama. Like drama was like a big thing. Uh,
It
between
still is.
labels and
Kind of.
yeah, I mean it's definitely still is, but like it feels way more
Hmm.
just tame and tolerant, and everything is a lot more tight knit in the community these days. Like way more than it used to be. Like back in the day,
Hmm.
like people were writing documents about each other, and people were like
Oh
trying to
shit.
oh
like
my
collect
god.
receipts on each other, and it was cutthroat. It was crazy. It was the Wild
Whoa.
West. So
Twitter
I got
cancel
caught in the
culture before
crossfire of that.
Twitter cancel culture.
Yeah, it was like
Right.
it was like Discord cancel culture. I don't know.
Oh my god.
It was wild. Like people were trying
Oh.
to get each other on like crazy things. So I got into some of that crossfire at the time in like
Hmm.
2018 ish, and like it was I had garnered kind of a negative reputation at the time just because it's like, oh, you're such an immature leader and can't run a label right, and don't know how to treat people and all that stuff. And I mean, it was true. I mean, I was pretty immature. Um,
Hmm.
and so I had a lot of growing to do, and Expanse was definitely a hard learning experience. But it was also really important to me in terms of like my general growth. So at the time, Elevate and Expanse were kind of like, going their own paths simultaneously. And so I was scared of Elevate. I kept hearing things of like, I had misunderstood like one thing that Melanie said at the time because I didn't know her as well at the time. Where like she said something like, "Oh, we got to go through like all these small labels and kind of weed out like who's actually serious or something like that." I took it as a
Hmm.
threat because I was like, "Oh, they're gonna come after me."
Oh damn.
Yeah, so it's obviously very silly to look at now because Melanie's like, one of the closest people to me, like one of my closest friends.
Mhm.
And so it's just really funny how it all worked out. So things just kind of like tension kind of started to simmer, started to kind of die down
Mhm.
in like 2019-ish. And so that was when I finally joined Elevate at the time. And I just kind of became friends with people, became friends with the staff, and I ended up becoming staff relatively quickly, surprisingly quickly. It just seemed
Whoa.
like that they needed some help. Um, Eventually, I became close with Melanie and, just got to a point where I ended up co-owning the server, and
Oh damn.
that ended
Uh-huh.
up happening in like late 2019. We had
Mhm.
actually tried to do another big yearly production challenge, like the big Elevate challenge for the year in 2019, and it completely failed. Like
Oh.
nobody signed up. Well, not nobody, but like only 30-ish people. But back in the day, because Elevate had started from the Monstercat subreddit. So
Mhm.
they were all kind of like Monstercat fans who kind of wanted to do a fun thing. And so they started doing like a challenge, like a production challenge of the people who were in that community. And so that's how it kind of grew in that first era. And so there were like hundreds of people participating in Elevate competitions in like 2017, 2018. Like that was the big
Mhm.
peak for that. And I think it was just like the enticing nature of like the prizes and like the benefits and the perks and whatnot that you
Right.
could like achieve.
Naturally.
And so
Yeah.
it garnered a lot of attention. It kind of it kind of really contributed to the cutthroat and dramatic nature and toxic nature of the server at the time. Was like just because everybody was competing against each other, and it was a much
Mm.
more like immature era of the scene. So at a certain point, like when Elevate 2019 completely failed, we were like, we can't do
Mm.
this anymore. We can't do this. We got to completely
Damn.
change course. And so, community was definitely growing up more, maturing more at the time. And so we just completely rebranded. And this was with finally me kind of co-owning, kind of at the helm of like deciding the next direction for the community. And so we rebranded to Novatone and we started Orbit. And so Orbit was a
Oh whoa.
monthly um, monthly genre focused compilation that people could just submit to, and if it's a cool song, it gets on. So that became like the thing for Novatone at that point. We were just trying it
Mhm.
out. We just wanted to see if it would work. I don't remember exactly who had the original idea for Orbit at the time. Um, but I feel like that I was really instrumental in bringing that to fruition and kind of like making it
Mhm.
a thing. And I really kind of, I kind of like took it on as like a project and um, created like a new uh, symphonic sub label for Novatone and kind of set things up in the way that I knew how and just, you know, locked in and said, all right, we're going to do it. Orbit 1, this is the genre. Submit. You got a month to produce something, and submit it by the end of the month. Go. And so we got stuff. It worked out really well. In
Yeah.
fact, like there's a track on Orbit One. Is More Stitches by Trail Mix. That got like picked up by the Geometry Dash community, and that has like 100,000 something plays. And so we were like, okay, let's keep doing this.
Fair enough.
This
Yeah.
might work.
I was gonna
This
say like it became really successful then in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone knows Novatone as the Orbit people now,
That's probably
and
such a nice feeling to have of like working on something and it's like, okay, this is not going well, and then you come up with something and then it starts doing like really, really well. Surely that's such like
absolutely,
a nice feeling to have.
absolutely. I've had that kind of happen to me multiple times. Like whenever I switched to like started to learn color base, I was like, okay, color base seems like the thing that will keep my career going forward. And then with Novatone, okay, Orbit seems to be the thing to keep that community going forward. So it's just like trying something and it worked out kind of deal has been kind of a theme for me, I guess. um, but yeah, so Orbit was quite good, so that turned out great and cool, and so ended up doing 30 orbits
Yeah.
over the course of
Yeah.
like slightly less than 5 years. But yeah, so current day Novatone, I ended up because my music career at the same time was starting to, because I had figured, okay, helping to run Novatone is probably like what I'm gonna do now, like in general. Like, okay, my music isn't really getting picked up by anybody. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna get anywhere myself, so I'm just gonna keep doing Novatone like I did with Expanse and just keep doing that. But then, Rushdown happened. And so I was also at the
Right.
same time I was still owning Novatone. And so it got to a certain point where this was about 2023 where I was like, I can't keep doing these two things at the same time. So I ended up stepping down from Novatone in 2023 to focus on music career entirely. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that I did that because there's a lot to do.
Yeah, this is a great
lot to do
segue
for
into
music.
the shirt and the banner. You've been on some pretty big labels. Say some of the biggest out
Pretty
there.
big, yeah.
You've not got an
Pretty
NCS, I
big.
don't think.
No, I do kind of want to try and get on NCS one day.
But
It's not my current not
yeah,
my current focus, but it would be fun to kind of try at least once. But yeah, I've
what's the
released
process
on.
of you making a song in order to get onto these labels? Because surely it's something where it's like, okay, I have to focus up. I need to try and do the best that I can in order to get accepted into these things.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely different ways to go about doing that. How I got on with Monstercat in particular was basically just Chime and I were like, we want to collab on something. And so he had already had like an ID that he was sitting on and was just kind of sitting there and wasn't really didn't really have much going on with it, and he had actually tried to find I think a couple other people to collab on it with, and they couldn't think of anything either. So I took a crack at
Yeah.
it. I kind of messed with the drop that he already had and adjusted it a bit, and he liked what I did with it, and so we kind of put together Liminal in a pretty relatively short amount of time. And so then after we finished the song, we then were like, okay, where should we send it? And I suggested Monstercat just to see, because like I at the time
Just to
I just
fuck
still
around.
thought that Monstercat was like just completely out of reach for me, because I had just always had like this tumultuous relationship with Monstercat where it was just like I kept sending stuff over and over, and they would always either ghost or deny me, like trying their label radar, trying an email and never hearing back, and all this other stuff. That was always something I had like a small sort of grudge or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't say like a total grudge. It was probably more of a grudge around the Expanse era, because that's kind of like when I started my own label. It's like I'm never going to get anywhere by myself kind of deal. I'm just going to do it myself, do a label myself kind of thing. But so I was just like, let's just try Monstercat. Let's just see what happens. And so Chime was like, yeah, let's do it. I'll get my manager to hit them up, hit up
Oh
the A&R
shit.
over there, and we'll see how it goes. And yeah, it got on.
Surely that
Yeah,
was the
so
crazy moment where it's like, oh my god, it actually got
Right.
I
on.
I learned about it at work, and
Oh
Oh
no.
god. How
This is
was
gonna
it?
be like the funniest work story you've ever seen of you just like fist pumping
Yeah.
in the air and all your coworkers,
yeah,
but
I
the
was like,
coworkers just
because
don't know.
yeah, because at work it's pretty quiet, and so I work in a
Mm.
cubicle, and so it's kind of just standard office job kind of thing. It's just really quiet in the office, just a bunch, just the air conditioning and the typing and the so it's I
And the
can't
clock.
like
Yeah.
yeah I can't quite make loud noises like I would want to for news like that, And so basically I found out because Chime hit me up on like Facebook Messenger and was like, yeah, so Monstercat took the song and they want to release it at so and so. And I was like, what?
What?
And so here I am, like,
Whoa.
here I am sitting in my cubicle at work, and I get this message,
Hyperventilating.
and I'm like,
Right, like,
oh my god. I can't like
oh my.
I can't like go and scream. I can't like go run around or anything. I'm just like sitting there, like I feel like that tingling feeling across my face. Like this is actually happening. Are you serious? Kind of thing.
Yo.
So yeah, that was quite fun. That was big. That was a big moment.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
like finding out that Monstercat wanted the song. So yeah, I mean, like to your point, you know, it's like sometimes you want to make a song for a label, but most of the time I'm just making songs and seeing if it will get on a label. Like I would just hang on to demos and just see. There
I
was a
love that.
case. There was a case, for example, way back even in 2021. Never Say Die actually contacted me, if you can believe that.
Oh.
Um, and they were like, "Hey, we've heard a few of your things, and we would like to hear some demos from you." Um, so I actually didn't have much at the time. I think this was around whenever I put out Timequake. Either that or it was slightly before. It was around the time I basically didn't have any demos ready, and so I was like, absolutely, I'll hit y'all back up as soon as possible once I got some stuff ready. And so that was a time where I was like trying to make stuff for a label. Unfortunately, as you might guess, none of that got on.
Ah.
Damn.
Yeah, and it sucked because then they shut down pretty soon after, so I didn't get another chance. I feel like I could have done it if I
Right.
kept trying. Um, but yeah, so those demos actually ended up getting to other places. There was Aurora Beam was one of the ones I made for Never Say Die, and that got on Rushdown, got on Colourbass Volume 3. And then Synergy is another one that I made for Never Say Die, and that got on Disciple Afterlife Volume 2. And that's another
Oh,
crazy
damn.
story.
How's that happened? We need to
Yeah, I
also
can
talk about
imagine.
Disciple. How have you gotten? What was the process
Yeah,
of you applying and then getting into? Was it another one of those oh my god moments
yeah.
where
It was definitely one of those as well. I kind of had two oh my god moments with Disciple, because obviously my releases are like several years apart from each other. So basically 2021, there was like this was like some kind of thing that happened like on Twitter of like I had just released Timequake, and there was something that Barely Alive was releasing on Disciple. Um, that was kind of similar to my style, I guess. I mean, it can be
Right.
argued either way whether it, but obviously, like Barely Alive didn't know who I was, so like they weren't like ripping me off or whatever. Like, um,
Right.
so Chime basically like went on Twitter and was like, "Ah, this sounds like Convexity," and
Huh.
so somehow that ignited like a firestorm of people being like, "Why would you try and promote your own label here? Why would you like say all this?
average
Why
Twitter?
would you try it?" Yeah,
Right.
it was a bit of a mess, and Chime kind of did not did not fare well there, unfortunately, and he was pretty down about it. But because he mentioned me there, uh, so Daniel, uh, who was astronaut, well, one half of astronaut, who was still kind of
Mm.
helping out at the time with Disciple, actually reached out to me via Twitter DMs and was like, "Hey, I would love to hear demos from you because we're putting together Afterlife Volume 2, and I want to hear
Oh
stuff from you."
man.
So I sent, I think I actually sent the same demos that Never Say Die denied. So that same
Mm.
package, so like Aurora Beam, Synergy, I think Forget Me was on there, which Forget Me ended up on Silkenwood. Um,
Mhm.
there's like one other one. But yeah, so they took Synergy from that pack. And
Right.
so Synergy got on Afterlife Volume 2. That was just, it just kind of just
Whoa.
happened like really relatively quickly there. It was just all of a sudden like,
And
hey,
out
I
of
want to hear
kind of
demos.
nowhere.
Yeah, it's like out of nowhere, hey, I want to hear demos from you. And so I sent them those demos that I had, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll take Synergy. And that was actually pretty soon after. And I was like, wow. And I was home this time. I was not at
Yeah.
work. I was home this time.
Thank
And so
God.
I was able
Mhm.
to run around and scream.
Fair enough.
uh
Fire, dude.
so yeah,
Oh.
that was the first time, and so I now had contact with Dan and Vishal. So I had actually gotten on Disciple the first time through Dan, but Dan doesn't really seem to do much with Disciple these days. He seems to be kind of busy with artist management now, as well as probably night mode stuff. I don't really know. I don't want to
Mhm.
I don't want to create speculation or anything because I'm not really too sure what Dan's up to these days, but I'm pretty sure that like artist management is kind of the big thing with managing like Noctu and Peekaboo and ISOXO, kind of those folks. And so I'm sure he's got his hands full now. But basically, so I tried to maintain a relationship with these folks. And I had actually kept trying for a while to return to Disciple. And there were many times that I had tried and I failed. Either they just never responded to me, or they would just say that it's not really, what they're looking for right now, or things like that. So I had tried at least 3 or 4 other times, and it didn't work out. So I had basically just had been continually trying. It is now 2024, kind of the beginning of 2024, and I kind of had like a few other demos kind of sitting around. Um, and it's funny because that was also at the same time that I was trying to also return to Monstercat, and I am still at a point right now where Monstercat has not, wanted me back yet. uh, so just been kind of trying over and over like different places, and so like I just was like, here's like 5 demos. Um, just I was like, I don't know if you consider this for roundtable or consider this for main label. I don't know, but like I basically messaged Vishal um, with those, and
Mhm.
just to see how he would feel, and it took him because Vishal is quite a busy person as well.
Right.
It took him a while to get to, probably a couple months or so, but this was like on a Sunday at like 2 in the morning. I get a message from him, and he's like, "Hey, so we want all of these."
Oh God.
was,
2
that
a.m.
was
too.
that was a big freak out moment because
Oh
it was like a
shit.
Sunday at 2 a.m. I was like, "What are you doing working at
That
2 a.m.
sounds
on a
Yeah.
Sunday?"
that
And what
I
are you
could
doing
never.
awake anyway?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, "What am I doing awake? What is he doing awake? What's happening right now?" Kind of deal. So he messages me at like 2 a.m. on a Sunday, like, "We want all of these." And so
Oh
like
God.
I'm like, wow, like literally all of them. And so they're like, yeah, we want all of them for main label. And I was just like, that's
Yeet.
What?
insane. That's ridiculous. You gotta be kidding.
Oh
So
man.
that was ended up being Transmission's EP. It was not initially planned to
Ooh.
be an EP, but the tracks were similar enough in theme and style that they could work together. And so I kind of determined what a
Mhm.
good track list would be, tried to think of like a name, because like, Vishal was like, like bullet point right out of the gate, like, all right, do you have like an artwork kind of idea for this? this is the release date we're thinking of. It's just kind of like locking in details like right out of the get-go. But like I was just like still in shock that he even took all of these, you know. So because this was not a like normal thing for me to experience. But he's like, you know, always trying to get one release after another from his perspective. So he's, you know, taking care of business. Well, I'm still like, I can't believe I got on here. Like I got to think about I got to like take time to really think about this.
Damn.
But yeah, it ended up working out extremely well. Transmissions is definitely like pinnacle peak Convexity. I'm extremely proud of that project. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, you know, getting on these labels, it's always been luck. It's been a lot of luck. It's been, you know, connections that I've tried to build over time. You know, things just sort of happen, and then you suddenly know somebody as a result, or like, you get to know other people through other people, and like you kind of have people that can vouch for you, or have like, you know, say, hey, you know, this is that person's email, you know, go ahead and hit them up, or like, hey, I can contact this person for you, you know, let them know about you, and kind of like, you know, drag you onto the email chain, or, you know, so that's just kind of how things kind of work with that, because obviously with these big labels, they're not going to go through like the demo box, or go through like the, you know, trudge through all of that stuff. They want to like work with people who are like relatively well connected, and like, you know, have something to show for themselves, have like a unique brand, have like a something that like sets them apart, and is like something that you know, especially with like the bigger players, like they have like manpower that they are investing money, you know, and like labor into for you, and so they want to see a return on their investment, with like streaming, with downloads, with hype. So that's kind of like uh, their end goal. Like, are you worth investing in? Is kind of what they're looking for. At a certain point, you know, you feel confident in like the quality of your music, and so like if you get rejected from labels, it's not, you know, it's not always about the quality. It's about like, this is not what we're looking for right now. This isn't really our, you know, trajectory. We're trying to focus on this sort of thing instead. We're trying to like, you know, it just the things like that. You can't always predict like what a label is trying to do at a current time, like what their mission is. But you know, you can at least just shoot your shot, because you never know. Like
Yeah, of course. Like never say
sometimes the
never.
planets align and you get somewhere. And because
Interesting.
like I ended up getting on Disciple because like Vishal mentioned, like, oh, we need to. I'm trying to fill in some slots for November, and he had also just taken the Marsix EP at the time as well, and he was like, I want to fill in some slots here, and so I got in just like at the right time. Right place, right time is definitely a big part of a lot of this as well. Um, so yeah, a lot of luck, a lot of like that. Also, labels are looking for particular things. They're looking for, is this worth, you know, taking on and putting effort into. You know, there's a lot of factors, and it's definitely kind of like planets aligning kind of thing to be able to, you know, work within that vein. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly been quite an experience to get to
Yeah,
know all these
definitely.
people, and you know, get to know how
Journey,
really see like behind the scenes how all this stuff works, how releases are planned, how the rollouts work, how like you know, what they try to plan out on certain days, do certain things, and the assets that they create, it's very interesting. It's really interesting to see all the inner workings and be able to like meet the people behind them, and you know, get to talk to them, you know, talk to them about like how you want a certain thing to look, and how you know, want to present like the certain theme of the release, and all that stuff. It's really interesting. It's been really cool to kind of see that behind the scenes. Certainly never thought I would get to this point. Really never thought I would.
Especially from like 10 years ago, about you were such a big fan of Monstercat, and then you were getting into the genre, and now like
Yep.
You've made it. You've done it.
No, you're there. Yeah.
Only took 12 years.
Only
Just
took
about.
12 years.
Only 12 years, but
It's not
I'm
too
really
bad.
thankful that
Damn.
I'm really thankful that I stayed determined.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I mean, like I was sending demos to Monstercat even when I was like 13. They were pretty
I've
bad.
done that too. It's fine. Like, I'm so sorry to the A&Rs who heard like my unmixed, like unprocessed track from like 3 years ago when I was 2 years into producing, and then they
Yeah.
had to listen to it, and it was
Yeah.
like and sort of sit there for like probably a minute or so.
Yeah.
I would like to put on the record that I apologize for my decisions.
Yeah, it's kind of a rite of passage now, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Mm.
I submitted my first song to Monstercat to see what would happen, kind of deal. It's
You
like,
never
you know,
know.
it's
You
kind
never
of-
know.
I love it.
Yeah, you
I
never
love
know.
it. It's just like, yeah, you never know.
All right, we're getting to
Yeah.
the end of the episode, so as is tradition,
As is tradition. This is gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be a hard question for you though. But
100%.
Okay.
we always ask the same. It's always hard for anyone anyway. But yeah. For Convexity, what are your, or not for Convexity, sorry, for like your personal top picks? What would you recommend people listening to right now?
What are your favorite songs right now?
Your
Hmm.
favorite songs? What your favorite picks anyway? Yeah.
That is
Anything.
an interesting question. I'm a bit unconventional in this regard because, believe it or not, I don't often listen to dubstep in my spare time. Um, and I feel like that kind of lends into kind of my general unique style that I've kind of crafted, where I'm taking so many inspirations from other areas and blending them into bass music, and so I think that that's kind of something that I really like and something that want to keep doing going forward. And so I take my inspiration from a lot of other places. Uh,
Mm.
right now, I'm kind of like listening to a lot of New Jack Swing, and that's a genre that
Ooh.
peaked in like the late 80s to early 90s. That's kind of like trying to think of there was like a whole Michael Jackson album that came out in the 90s that was kind of that style. There was like folks like Bobby Brown, folks like Janet Jackson. There's stuff like if you heard like Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson or heard like My Prerogative by Bobby Brown or that kind of thing. That's like the New Jack Swing sound where it's like very drum machine, very, heavily electronic and processed. And it's like kind of swing beats. And kind of
Swing,
like
yeah, I love it.
R&B, hip hop adjacent. Um,
Mhm.
I've been like really into that recently because like for example like with the early like Sonic soundtrack like for Sonic 1 through 3, a lot of that is inspired by a New Jack Swing as well because that was just like the big thing at the time. So that kind of carried forward. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
I find it really cool. I find New Jack Swing really cool. Um, and I find like funk music in general really cool. One of my
Nice.
favorite musicians is George Clinton, and he's he's like the band leader of Parliament and Funkadelic, and so
Mhm.
they're like the big songs from there, and like I'm like so deep in like the whole P-Funk sphere. I'm deep in like the deep cuts and like all the stuff that George has produced, and all that has been like really inspirational to me. The stuff that Bootsy Collins was involved with along with George, and it's just the whole stuff like the P-Funk stuff, the Parliament Funkadelic kind of sound George Clinton kind of created has been a big thing for me as well. Let's see what
Nice.
else.
Yeah.
I listen to vaporwave sometimes to kind of get
Fire.
my nostalgia juices flowing. Listen to just straight up jazz
Yeah.
sometimes, like cool jazz, smooth jazz. I've obviously like in terms of more modern jazz, like the Phonon album that just came out is incredible, and I think that folks should absolutely listen to that. It is not an easy listen. It is a
Right.
it is a deep and intriguing and mesmerizing listen. Uh, Very inspirational. I would consider it generational in terms of like how it's going to have impact of like branching out into like this kind of more like insane off the wall kind of sound. And it's definitely inspiring me because I want to go more in that direction myself. Phonon's big inspiration for me. Cool guy, you know. So
Nice.
I would say definitely that album has been kind of on my mind a lot recently, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like that probably covers most of it. I listened to quite a few things.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
you
that
listen to
That's
quite a
like
lot.
thing.
It sounds
Yes.
like.
oh yeah, boom bap
Mhm.
beats, like kind of not quite
Oh,
lo-fi,
nice.
but yeah, like like the boom bap type stuff. That's kind of like
Lo-fi, but cooler. Not
yeah,
gonna lie.
yeah, like kind of like the neo soul adjacent kind of jazztronica and jazz funk and all that stuff. Boom bap
groovy
beats
stuff.
and yeah, it's all
Nice.
kinds of stuff like that. I'm all into
Sounds
jazziness and
great.
funkiness
Sounds really,
and
really good.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. Nice.
All right, Convexity.
But
Now
anyway.
it is your time. We're getting to the end of the episode. Here's your time. If you want to say anything, if you want to shout out anything, if you want to point to anything, I don't know what you want to do, but if you want to,
Yeah.
here's your time at the end of the episode to kind of speak what you want to speak and shout out
whatever
any
you
of your
want.
projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, folks can join my Discord server. I think if you go to like my convexity.online kind of
The
general
links will
link
be in the
tree.
description, so
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
put it
everything will
there.
be down here. Yeah.
Yeah, if
Mhm.
you go to that convexity.online, like I've got my Discord server like linked in there. It's called Corn Gang. And so Corn Gang kind of has weekly stuff. I took a break from streaming this week because like I got way too much to do. But like we do like production challenges. I do like music feedback reactions and like kind of like listening parties and like grabbing guests that I've collab with and like just hanging out and doing Q&A stuff, like hanging out with me and the collaborators of a new song that comes out, like the stuff I'm doing with Kiro recently. I've been doing a lot of stuff with like getting Kiro on my events and like having him hang out either just to hang and take questions or like just hang and like uh listen to folks' music that they submit. So that's been really fun. So definitely like I would recommend folks join my server to kind of see what's going on lately. I've got things cooking, things that will probably come to fruition eventually. Things that I cannot speak on.
Ooh.
And
You heard it
you
here
know
first, folks.
Yeah.
You heard it here
yeah,
first.
I'm kind
Top
of
secret, dude.
the direction that I'm going recently. I mean, like I can say right now that this year, I feel like this year is kind of gonna probably be more of like a rebuilding kind of year. I don't feel like I don't really have like super big releases planned like for this year. Honestly, I'm kind of like I haven't really known where to go after transmissions. To be completely honest, that was kind of like that was like the thing that was like the achievement, and so I haven't really known because like things are just kind of strange right now in terms of like labels and in terms of like what's going on and what they're releasing and like with Rushdown gone, with Halcyon being kind of a bit more low key, and Monstercat's kind of like really focusing more on like their core people, and Disciple hasn't really been active, and so like I haven't really known what to do personally. I do have, there are things coming this year on Circus. You've seen Night
Ooh.
Riders and Dreamweaver that are both have Kiro involved. I wonder why that could be. I wonder what could be coming out with Circus that has me and Kiro on it. Could be
Hmm.
could be a project. It's going to be some stuff that we've been keeping in the vault for a while, that we've been working on
Who
for
knows?
forever. It's kind of like a cool little throwback because like Dreamweaver that just came out. Dreamweaver, we actually had done in like 2022, like late 2022, and now it's just coming out. So like this is kind of stuff we're kind of releasing some stuff from the vault, just to kind of
Mhm.
get it out there and finally say, all right, we're finally dropping this because like folks might have heard it in like a mix a few years ago or heard it like interdimensional radio when that was a thing, and or heard it like clipped from like a showcase or whatever. Like we're finally dropping some of that stuff. And besides that, I've got things that I'm cooking, things that I'm
Mhm.
thinking about and considering for next year. It'll be interesting.
Nice.
I don't know how it's going to go, but it is something that I will just say. Let's just say, because I don't want to spoil this at all, but let's just say
Mhm.
that it's stuff that I've wanted to do for years. Um, we'll
Whoa.
leave it at that. I'm
So
gonna
very
try it.
big.
I'm gonna
You heard it
see
here
if
first,
I can.
folks.
I'm gonna see if I can
Yeah.
pull that off next year. I don't know, but it's
Mhm.
feeling a bit daunting right now, but it also feels really exciting. I want to see what I can do going forward. I have no idea. I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, as we say over here in the South. Um, so
Great.
we're just seeing what happens. This is a very see what happens kind of mode right now with my career, with with color base kind of dying down, and with like a lot of people kind of moving on, a lot of the quote pioneers or whatever kind of moving on from that sound and trying other things. I'm kind of doing the same. I
Hmm.
mean, I guess I consider my stuff still color base adjacent, but like the stuff I'm working on
Right.
now, I can't even like quite quantify what it is. So we'll
Yeah.
leave it at that. Obviously, like some of the stuff like coming out in Circus, that's like straight up color based. This is stuff that's been like sitting around for a few years. So we'll give that final little taste, and then I'm gonna just go off the deep end probably next year. I don't know. We'll see.
I can't wait. I can't wait to
We'll
hear it.
see.
It's going to be very interesting from the sounds of it.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know how it's gonna go. I don't know. I'm trying my best, and we'll just see what happens.
We all do.
See what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
But
check out Convexity. The
Nice.
links are all in the description, as I said. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast for talking with us. It's absolutely great.
yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
having
it's
me.
been fun. Very fun.
100%. So I think that wraps up the episode. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Henry, also known as Hank Ray. Joined by the
That's you,
co-host
yeah.
Oswald, aka Oswald. And we'll see you in the next episode.